Here's the truth, folks. Labour is waging war on the very people it promised to protect. I'm Mark Dolan, good to see you. Now, you know what they say, actions speak louder than words. And whilst this horrific new Labour government says that it will be the party of working people, that is the group worst affected by this latest experiment in socialism. For example, the national insurance tax rate on employers will mean ordinary working people having lower wages, losing bonuses, passed over for promotion, and even given the sack. Because the companies they work for have got to make the sums add up. I'm afraid that mathematics, spreadsheets, and the bottom line don't care about your feelings or how you're going to pay for Christmas presents for the kids this year. The party of ordinary working people? Do me a favour. This national insurance tax raid on business will also see companies invest less, do less marketing, and have less research and development. This weakens the companies which ordinary working people work for, so that hurts them as well. You see, when you work for a company, you need it to be healthy and strong so that you can then still have a job and feed your own family. Do you see the problem? So the tax raid isn't really an attack on companies that can afford it. It's an attack on employees who cannot. Actions speak louder than words. And Rachel Reeves said that her budget was a budget for growth, except that growth has crashed from 0.5% in July under Rishi Sunak, the highest growth rate in the G7, to 0.1% under Sir Keir Starmer. That is nearly a recession. So who does lower growth affect the most? Well, it's people at the bottom end of the economic ladder. Why? Because there's less money for public services and welfare, both of which the poorest rely on most. The well-off, especially Labour Party cheerleaders like Carol Vorderman and Gary Neville, can easily afford Socialism 2.0. Ordinary working people just can't. Now, this new government has been drinking the net zero Kool-Aid under bacon sandwich mutilator Ed Miliband, who almost destroyed the Labour Party when he beat his brother to the leadership a few years ago, ultimately paving the way for Jeremy Corbyn. Well, this prize numpty is back, committing to decarbonise the economy by next Tuesday. With Britain responsible for 1% of global carbon emissions, how is that going to reduce the Earth's temperature? It's anyone's guess. And whilst I want to clean up the planet and get those emissions down, of course I do, the ideology of net zero, which is almost like a religious cult, the proof of which is that it can't be criticised or challenged, is inherently bourgeois. That's right, net zero is basically a very middle-class idea. Being on board with net zero is the perfect way to signal to your well-off friends that you're a good person as you cruise around in an electric car, the batteries of which are terrible for the environment and the contents of which, the precious rare minerals, require effective slave labour from children knee-deep in fetid slime in the Congo. That's just mining for cobalt and lithium, all so that people in Islington, North London, can feel good about themselves. The energy inputs to make these cars are colossal, which is why ditching your 12-year-old Volkswagen Passat makes absolutely no sense. But then this is all about sending a message rather than actually saving the planet. Electric cars alienate ordinary working people. They can't afford them. They're too expensive to buy, too expensive to insure, too expensive to repair. And where the hell would you charge them up? An ordinary working person holding down 2 or 3 jobs just to keep the lights on hasn't got time to sit at a petrol station at 3 p.m. in a queue waiting to recharge their Nissan Leaf. It ain't going to happen. Expensive heat pump boilers, posh solar panels, eye-wateringly expensive insulation. Ordinary working people cannot afford any of that, which is why all of this is simply a vanity project that hinders rather than helps them. Decarbonisation is going to cost hundreds of billions of pounds. It might not work, and it will definitely make the country poorer. And when a country makes itself poorer, it is the poorest in that country who are the worst off. And look at the clean air policy of ULEZ in London, courtesy of the Labour Mayor Sadiq Khan. ULEZ renders older cars effectively illegal, right? There's a daily charge just to drive one in the ULEZ area because the car might not pass the emissions test. Well, who drives older, beaten up, bashed up cars, held together by gaffer tape and hope? It's ordinary working people. You see, there's a theme emerging here, isn't there? Adding insult to injury, Labour reversed Rishi Sunak's stay of execution for new petrol and diesel cars, meaning that it will be impossible to buy such a device from 2030. Meanwhile, the European Union will continue to make and sell these cars for another 5 years. Another nail in the coffin for the British car industry. And if you think that's pessimistic, if you think that's a doomsday scenario, look no further than the closure of Ellesmere Port, a huge factory employing over 1,000 ordinary working people. It's going to close down largely as a result of state-enforced targets for electric vehicles. Why do companies and consumers have to be bullied into buying electric cars? Why all these rules? Why these penalties? Why all the subsidies? Well, because companies and consumers know that they're bloody useless. Why else have electric car sales nosedived across Europe in recent months? Now, there's another aspect in which the Labour Party don't represent ordinary working people that they claim to do. The Labour Party is institutionally woke, proof of which being its own leader who has struggled for years now to define what a woman is. And woke is anti-working class. There are simply no ordinary working class people who are woke. It is once again a fashionable ideology exclusive to the university-educated middle classes in our big cities who don't have anything else to worry about other than what their pronouns are. Ordinary working people hate political correctness, so pursuing woke policies like the idea that there are 100 genders or banning the word woman from NHS literature about the menopause is actually a cultural and ideological war against ordinary working people who hate all of that stuff. Ordinary working people are not PC. But what they are is patriotic. They are patriotic. Meanwhile, Labour MPs sneer at the flag, and working people, ordinary working people, are proud of their country and its history. Meanwhile, Labour cabinet ministers talk of reparations for slavery. Labour talk about diversity is our strength, whilst ordinary working people struggle to survive in our increasingly ghettoised and atomised communities. Labour are liberal when it comes to border control. Why else would Sir Keir Starmer go on record as saying that he would axe the Rwanda plan, and I quote, even if it works? If that's not the ideology of open borders, I don't know what is. Ordinary working people are furious about the current levels of legal and illegal net migration. If you add up the number of people that voted Conservative and Reform at the last election, it's over 10 million people. Now, that is more than the 9 and a bit million that voted Labour. Given that the Tories and Reform took a strong position on immigration, that is a clear sign that over 10 million people, ordinary working people, are concerned about the status quo, and why wouldn't they be? Labour's soft position on immigration is another assault on ordinary working people because high levels of immigration keep downward pressure on wages, flood our economy with low-skilled labour, and of course large-scale legal and illegal immigration. We'll see the benefits bill spiral, we'll see GP appointments, housing, school places and other infrastructure placed under further pressure, and large-scale legal and illegal immigration creates further competition for resources. Bad news if you are reliant on the state to get through daily life, because you'll be joined by more people who need the same. So do you see how Labour's claim to be the party of working people rings hollow? It's almost like a lie, but of course I would never accuse this administration of lying, far from it. But look at the leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer, a North London human rights lawyer who takes the knee to the latest woke cause. And a man so out of touch with ordinary people that he said, when given a choice, he would rather be in Davos in Switzerland than in Westminster. Earlier this month, he boasted of meetings with corporate giant BlackRock and of rubbing shoulders with billionaire health guru Bill Gates. Man of the people, eh? I don't think so. No. Man of the corporate and political super elite. The same creepy global elite that demonstrated during the pandemic that they saw ordinary people as the minions who will be given their instructions on where to go, when to travel, and who to see. Their faces will be masked and they will be jabbed, all at our decree. Next from this administration, which is taking instructions from global billionaires, not the people, will be telling people to eat less meat to save the planet. That's right, that's what's coming next. During the pandemic, your civil liberties were absolutely destroyed in a failed attempt to stop a nasty seasonal virus. Well, now you're going to be told to stop eating meat to save the planet. So these authoritarian bullies will decide what goes on your plates, not helped by the current war on farmers, who are also, I hasten to add, ordinary working people. Here's the truth, folks. Labour is waging war on the very people it promised to protect.